5 Common Mistakes to Avoid in a Sermon Introduction by Ainsworth K. Morris. Ainsworth K. Morris, Doctor of Ministry, is Assistant to the President, Northeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, Jamaica, New York, United States. We have all been there. You walk up to the pulpit, look over the sea of expectant faces, and wonder, is my sermon going to make a difference in their lives? Will I be able to grab and keep their attention? In that crucial first minute, it is very important to start well. A weak introduction can lose your audience before the message even begins, something no preacher or speaker wants. The first few moments set the tone for everything that follows. Without a strong start, it becomes much harder to regain focus and keep your audience engaged throughout the rest of your sermon. That is why it is essential to make every word of your introduction count. Avoiding the following frequent mistakes will make your sermon introductions arresting and alluring. Mistake number 1, overloading your introduction. One of the most common mistakes preachers make is packing too much into the introduction. Yes, it is important to indicate the purpose or goal of the sermon, but sharing too many details or points right at the beginning might leave your audience feeling a bit confused or even overwhelmed. Instead of building anticipation as you hoped, it might cause them to lose focus. Here's the solution. Keep it simple and focused. Aim for a clear, concise introduction that highlights the main idea without going into too much detail. Just tease the key points that are to come without unpacking them fully. For example, say something like, quote, "Today, we'll be exploring 3 ways faith can overcome fear," end quote. That provides just enough information without immediately giving everything away. You have already told them that faith wins the battle over fear. Now they wait to hear the 3 ways it does. Mistake number 2, not connecting early. If your introduction does not resonate with your audience, you may lose them right at the outset. Whether it is being too formal or abstract or not addressing their particular needs, if your sermon does not immediately connect to your listeners, it will be harder to engage them later. If your audience does not know where the sermon is going, they will feel lost as the message unfolds. Without clear, stated goals, your listeners might struggle to follow along, especially during longer sermons or more complex theological topics. But when you outline key stops, points, or themes, it gives them mental checkpoints and helps them stay engaged throughout the sermon. Begin with something relatable, maybe a story, question, statistic, or a shared experience. Start with something that draws them in. For example, you could ask, quote, "Have you ever felt like you were fighting a losing battle in life? Today we're going to talk about how God gives us victory even when things seem impossible," end quote. This draws them in because it speaks directly to their own experiences and concerns. When you fail to connect early, listeners feel lost as they try to piece together the purpose of your message. Mistake number 3, being vague or general. An ambiguous introduction can start your audience on a desperate search for the point of the sermon. If you do not clearly define the purpose of your message, listeners may become confused and disengaged. General statements such as, quote, "Today we're going to talk about faith," end quote, just do not provide enough direction or intrigue. To solve this, you need to be specific and give your audience a clear roadmap. Share the aspects of faith you are talking about. Zero in, narrow it down. For example, say, quote, "Today we'll look at how faith strengthens us during 3 specific challenges: fear, uncertainty, and loss," end quote. Now the sermon has structure and purpose, and it is clear what 3 specific challenges you will focus on. Give the listeners something to look forward to and follow along with. With this kind of preview, your listeners will immediately know the flow and purpose of the sermon. As you cover each point, they can follow along with ease, anticipating where you will go next. They will be more engaged with the message instead of trying to decipher its purpose. Mistake 4, not creating curiosity and tension. If a sermon begins and fails to pique people's curiosity or address a genuine issue, it can be an immediate turnoff. If you just say, quote, "Today we're going to talk about faith," end quote, people might not know what it means or why it matters for their lives. They might stop paying attention because they don't see how it connects to them. But when you start with a question or problem such as, quote, "What do you do when life is hard and you feel like God is not listening?" end quote, this makes them want to hear more. It creates tension or curiosity. It grabs their attention and makes them want to know the answer. I have learned that people don't listen just because something is from the Bible. They listen when they feel like the message is for them. So, make sure your introduction speaks to real-life challenges. When you do that, people will stay with you. Mistake 5. Taking too long to get to the point. Dragging out the introduction is a no-no. Not getting quickly to the heart of the message will cause your audience to lose interest before you even begin your main points. Rambling or going off on unnecessary tangents is never good, but especially doing so early can derail your sermon before it even starts. To avoid this, start strong and stay focused. Aim to introduce your message within the first few minutes. Get to the main point or points quickly. Give just enough context to support your main point, then move into the heart of your message. Ask yourself, what is the one idea I want them to grasp right away? Use your introduction to set the stage, not to take a scenic route. Imagine you are preaching on the story of the Good Samaritan. You open with a long, detailed backstory about ancient roads and travel customs of the time, then shift to a personal anecdote about a journey you took a few years back. 10 minutes in, and you still have not mentioned the parable or the theme of compassion you plan to discuss. By this time, half of your listeners are mentally elsewhere. If they are still listening, they are waiting for the relevance, the connection, the heart of the message. Unfortunately, because of the long detour, they may not be as engaged as they would have been had you started with a quick, clear setup and then moved straight into the powerful points brought out in the parable about loving our neighbors. Maybe a better approach would be to open with something like this, quote, "Have you ever been in a position to help someone but hesitated? What does real compassion look like when it costs you something? Let's look at a story Jesus told that flips our expectations and challenges us to act compassionately, even when it's inconvenient." End quote. Within a few moments, you have engaged your listeners. They feel the tension in such experiences and are ready to walk with you through the sermon. Keep them engaged. Remember this, an introduction is the runway, not the flight. It is meant to lift off, not circle the airport. By not overloading your introduction, connecting with your audience early, being specific, creating curiosity and tension, and getting to the point quickly, you set the stage for a sermon that flows smoothly and captures hearts and minds. When you take time to craft it with care, your introduction will establish the right tone, catch your audience's attention, and keep them engaged. For bibliographical and biblical references on this article, and for much more content for pastors and church leaders, please visit ministrymagazine.org.